Mr. Deputy Chairman, so far as the principles underlying this bill are concerned, I am in full agreement. I also find that the provisions of this bill are an improvement upon the various provisions of the Essential Supplies Powers Act 1946, which this bill proposes to replace, and I would like to congratulate the government for implementing the recommendations of the committee which you so ably presided over. But I shall soon point out to you that very many important recommendations which your committee was good enough to make have not been implemented in the provisions of the bill. I agree with the Honorable Minister that in a planned economy it is essential that the government should have such reserve powers as they seek under the provisions of this bill. It is imperative that they should have powers to regulate the production, supply, and distribution at correct prices of the commodities which are most essential for the life of the community, and I find that most of the government of the different countries in the world today possess such reserve powers in a small or a big measure. In the United States of America, which still believes largely in a laissez-faire economy, they have such powers in a very big measure. Therefore, I don't grudge the grant of such powers to the government, but as has pointed out by my honorable friend, the mover of this bill, there is no immediate necessity of enforcing the provisions of this bill because we have passed through the era of plenty, as has been pointed out by my honorable friend. But we must take lessons from our experience in the past when the control measures were there, and you have in your report very ably pointed out as to how these defects could be removed. But I would like to view this measure from a little different angle. We have got to view this measure from two different angles. We have to keep in view the big towns, the small towns, and the big centers of production. We have to control production and distribution by big undertakings, and we have to maintain supplies in big towns and cities where the government machinery is functioning and we see so many officers there. But we have also to keep in view that we have got to regulate production. Now, the bulk of our population lives in the villages where we have got to maintain the supplies. Now, these villages are spread over big distances. There is lack of communications in the countryside, and we don't have the officials who administer these controls there. They are to be found only in the district or subdivisional headquarters or mostly in some circle headquarters in the villages, but the vast rural areas which constitute the village population do not have any officer of the government to enforce these measures, and there in those areas we have a large number of small tradesmen who come under the compass of this bill. The question is how to enforce these controls in those areas, in the villages and in the rural areas. And I see that unless we get the active and willing cooperation of the people in the countryside, it is impossible to administer the control through the agency of the government servants. The people were indifferent to controls, and the question that now arises is this: how can we enlist their cooperation and sympathy? The village people must feel that they are getting a fair deal under the control measures, and unless they feel that they are being justly treated, they cannot give their cooperation to you. There was a big disparity between the prices of the controlled commodities, which were products of agriculture, and the products of industry. The villagers felt that their products, the agricultural products which they produced, were being snatched away from them at very unfair prices. They had to purchase industrial products at very much higher prices. So, unless the government sees to it that a proper parity is maintained between the products of agriculture and the products of industry. You cannot have the full cooperation of the people in enforcing the control measures. The people must feel that they are being fairly dealt with. Then the other point that I would like to emphasize is that people must have a hand in administering the control itself. What happened during the last control days? The control measures were being enforced by supply inspectors at the lowest level. They used to live in the district of subdivisional headquarters, and there was nobody to enforce the controls in the villages. Then the corruption started at the village end. The small tradesmen and all the people who dealt in the commodities at the village level were in league with these officials, and they victimized the people. The people were helpless victims and helpless witnesses to all those things that had been happening for centuries in the villages. Mr. Deputy Chairman, sir, I associate myself wholeheartedly with the suggestion made by Professor Ranga that postal life insurance should be thrown open to the general public. Incidentally, I may say that I am glad to find myself on this occasion in company with Mr. Bhupesh Gupta also. They say that one is known by the company one keeps, who I only wish that I shall not be judged by the little company that I am going to keep with Mr. Gupta. I have said that I associate myself with the suggestion made by Professor Ranga. I have called it a suggestion because it can only be suggested to the government to take such a step at some subsequent stage, because so far as this bill is concerned, this suggestion could not be incorporated therein. My friend Mr. Gupta has unnecessarily criticized the government for not having incorporated this in the bill itself. Though it is well and good to make the suggestion for the government to adopt, there can hardly be an occasion now for us to accuse the government for not having incorporated this suggestion in the bill itself, because postal life insurance cannot be thrown open to the general public by any amendment of the Life Insurance Act. That has to be done by amending the Postal Life Insurance Act, and I hope and trust that the government will take note of this suggestion, which I hope has the support of every member of this house, expecting of course my revered friend Mr. H.P. Saxena, who at least on this occasion is grievously in the wrong, though generally he is very much in the right, and I have no doubt that on sober consideration he will be sorry for having opposed the suggestion of Professor Ranga. Sir, there is a general feeling in the country, a feeling with which most of the members, I believe almost every member here, would be in agreement that insurance business should be nationalized through in due course, and I think the first step that the government might take in that direction is to throw open the postal life insurance to the general public. Thereby we shall also be in a position to know as to how the government would fare in the business if it is undertaken on a large scale, because they are unable to put in the adequate organization. There is certainly one great advantage which will immediately accrue to the government, and which will be to the benefit of the existing policy holders and subsequent policy holders, and that is that the cost of insurance will considerably go down. Even at present, the cost of postal life insurance is very much less than the cost of ordinary life insurance, and if it is thrown upon open to the general public also, the cost will be reduced still further, and that will be not only to the advantage of the government, because the government will be having the advantage of all the premiums that will be accruing therefrom, but the policy holders will also have the advantage of the reduced cost. For these reasons, I once again submit that I wholeheartedly support the suggestion made by Professor Ranga, and the suggestion which has the support of Mr. Gupta also. With these words, I support this bill. Sir, I rise to support this bill, which is of a non controversial nature because the benefit of assignments and transfers of policies to be hires is thought fit to be given under the amending bill, and that is very necessary.